cannot do this data driven.
Which game was it? Is it baseball or?
This is the game of baseball. Maybe you can elaborate, because I think this is exactly right.
Yeah, so that's one field where they were using statistics to really compose the team. What do we need to win?
Right.
But the field that intrigues me more that's in endurance sport. So how can we get our engine, our human machine, to perform as good as it can? And here, as I mentioned, the Norwegians are really pushing it.
In which sport?
That's triathlon. Yes. So they are in the lab. They are testing their performance. They are testing their VO2 max, their different thresholds. They are measuring lactate to see the stress on the body, how much recovery do they need, and how can they improve. So it's really track, model, predict results, and how can we win, and then act every day and do the hard work. And it's no difference in business. It's really the same. So we need to understand what drives our performance. How can we model it? How can we follow up? How can we act? How can we improve? So I think that's
so they have sensors for Norwegian that try to become data driven when it comes to the training, I guess, or triathlon.
Yeah.
What do they do?
They have sensors, so they measure everything. So they of course, as many, everyday athletes, you have your sports watch, you measure your heart rate, you measure your pulse and your recovery heart rate and things like this. They measure everything. They measure lactate, that is basically the stress response in the energy system and so on. They measure that to be at the right intensities. They measure their heat, how the core body heat. They even have some sensors that measure the basically the energy system.
Glucose levels?
Yeah, exactly. In the bloodstream, and how that is varying during training and so on. So they have a lot of sensors they get relevant data. And they are building out very interesting profiles of how they respond to different stress. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. But have you guys read Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Because I think what is missed sometimes in business, but I think is better understood in sports, is that what looks like a very transformative activity on the outside is ultimately compounding effects of very many small things done right.
Yes, and making a habit, right?
And making a habit out of it. So the storyline around sports science in one of the case studies in Atomic Habits is the UK cycling team that was very average cycling team, and they went on a scientific journey to lift every stone, so to speak, and do micro improvements everywhere on the paint, the weight of the paint on the bike, ridiculous stuff. And then in the end, it turned out to be one of the most successful cycling teams coming, in just a couple of years, they were focusing, I think, on the London Olympics. That was their sort of goal. But I think this is missed sometimes in business, that we don't understand. We think about the big transformative programs or projects where everything is actually, no, get your patterns right, get your habits right.
Absolutely. It's a lot about the cross-section between people and technology to really drive the change and introduce a cultural shift also often. If you mention pricing and commercial excellence, it's equally important to get the cultural change in place, how we think and what we do, and really shift maybe from a volume focus to a profit focus. Things like this can make a big difference.
And I think let's go back a little bit to the scientific approach.
Yes.
So regardless if it's sports or now business, it's about this putting up an hypothesis and start measuring things and start getting your data right.
Yes. And here I think that business at times, if we look backwards now, the last 5 to 10 years, it's been collecting data, not always with the purpose in mind. And there I think sports do better. What is it we want to drive? What performance is it that we want to drive? And what metrics, what sensors do we need to drive that performance? So turn things around a little bit. And the same in business. We've been so eager to just collect the information without thinking about how we're going to use it. So making sure that we put the right ingredients in. I was sitting with a client the other day and we were going through their data, and it's a lot of data, but it's not well structured and it's missing how it's recorded. So if you record transactions, what are the attributes or the dimensions on the transactions that you would like to have? So you get traceability of that lactic curve or whatever it is you want to follow. And then you realize that going back in that historical time series and add these dimensions, that's close to impossible, especially if it's not stored anywhere. You don't have anything to join up. But if you're mindful with how you record the data, you can make sure that those relevant dimensions are collected in your time series.
Interesting. And one thing, of course, is to use analytics for training performance.
Yeah.
Then you can use it for other things like referee assistances or whatnot. Yes. Do you have, some people say it removes some of the charm or glory of soccer, for example, using what's called VAR, this video assisted
referee.
These things.
Yeah.
Do you think it removes some of the charm?
You asked if something upset me earlier. Of course, it can be very frustrating if kind of the traditions disappear a little bit. But I think we should see it as a good complement still, and make sports more fair. We take that triathlon example again. You cannot draft on the bicycle. You need to keep a certain distance, because otherwise, basically, you get an advantage from the rider in front. And here they are exploring to introduce sensors that would basically signal if you're getting too close. And I think it's actually good because it's been a lot of subjective things from the referees. No, you were in. It's very hard to judge from a motorcycle next to the bike ride. What is that distance? Right. If they could take that away and maybe get a pre-warning, then it's a big change for the sport. But I think it can also be helpful.
But Anders, I think. And now I'm speaking from my own, how I view the World Cup and everything like that. I think the problem is not to do it in theory. It's the execution that fucks it up. Like so, if people get VAR right and you're using it in a good way, and you find the way how to use it, and the way that is some sort of standard that each. You know, it seems almost like if you watch the World Cup, that different umpires had completely different understanding for how they use VAR.
Yes,
that's the problem. It's the execution that's the problem. Not that we start getting complementary capabilities. So support is good. Yeah. Once again, it's the execution that you don't do.
How you use it and using it with consistency.
Yeah, and this is going to be now. I think when you talk about is it ruining the game? Is it ruining the culture? It's about how you implement it that will ultimately determine that. This is my personal opinion on that. I think it's great.
I guess we can compare it to like ChatGPT or something, and someone today is making a comment online, some kind of debate, and someone is just quickly trying out, in ChatGPT, is this correct or not? And they get a quick response. And I think, in every kind of situation, even I guess in sports as well, you will have AI giving some kind of judgment very quickly. You can't really stop that. It's going to happen anyway, right?
This is execution we need to work.
I had a colleague, this is 10 years ago or more, that talked about basically like a delta. How long time does it take for me to figure out the solution or what I want to test? And how long time does it take me to perform that work or that test or that whatever it is? If that is very long, the difference in time, it's frustrating, right? You have a great idea, but you can't really evaluate it. And I think with AI and ChatGPT, etc., we're shortening that enormously. So what took weeks or can now take literally just minutes. So it's a accelerator. And I think it's also is affected. It's not only that, okay, now we can act faster, but it's also changing the expectation and the velocity. So it's helping us to be quicker, but we're also forced to be quicker to stay competitive.
Yeah, right.
So
it's like, I think, in business as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have personally been, running in triathlons and whatnot. So I mean, it's really impressive, I must say, both in Kalmar, in Hawaii, and
Kona. We talked about
Kona. Yes, that was fun.
Oh, that was fun, right?
Yes.
And I guess okay, one question. Some people say that using AI can be dangerous, and then you can think also, if you use data and AI to help you with the training and perhaps the inference mode or when running as well, it will be an aid.
Yes.
And perhaps it's more dangerous to not use AI. So I mean,
you're left behind. I think you will be left behind in business and in other fields if you don't start to leverage this in your business in an operational way. You will be left behind.
Yeah. But let me explore like a last maybe to round up the using data in scientific approaches, business, sports. My observation, and maybe it's wrong, so please correct me, but I think sometimes if I compare, like in business versus sports, in sports, the goal of what you're wanting to achieve is super clear.
Yes.
And even the levers you can pull are super clear.
Yeah.
So the problem framing, when you start looking for data and data points and all that, is quite sharp if I compare this to how fluffy sometimes business can be in explaining what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, sports, we're comparing so many things. So if we talk about chess or something like that, then the rules are extremely clear. But as soon as we start to look at more complex sports, I mean, it's so many dimensions. It's nutrition, it's training, it's recovery, it's technique. Then I think it gets equally complex to business.
No, but the point is not that it's less or more complex. The point is that we are more sharp if what we are trying to achieve as a goal with our analytics and what data points we need.
Yes.
I think we are sometimes. My experience has been that we're having a very lofty goal of we need to have better profitability.
Yes.
Duh.
Yeah, of course.
and then could you please break that down a bit? So we can start working on the levers here.
Yes.
And I think here in sports, I think sometimes business are further away from being sharp.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying.
Yeah.
Complexity, I think, is the same if you take it to one of the complex sports.
Yeah. No, but that's probably right. And I've been if I think about commercial excellence and pricing, basically where I spent most of my career. When I came into an organization and we started a journey to explore their maturity and things like this, there's a tendency in a fluffy way to talk about everything and nothing at once.
Exactly.
So you need to break it down into one thing at a time. So in pricing, that means basically you go from some type of reference pricing to a net price. And if you're saying our price is too high, or we get complaints from the customer. So what's the problem? Is it one product that is not correctly positioned in our reference structures? Do we have a problem in the geography? Do we have a problem in a vertical or segment? Do we have a problem with how we go from into value selling to net pricing? If you have a clear methodology, a clear business language, so you can separate these things out, then you can also be a little bit a guard of the conversation. What are you talking about? Exactly. Are you talking about referencing pricing, or are you talking about net pricing? Sharp. Let's be sharp. Let's solve. If we should optimize this, we need to solve one thing at a time. And that's fluffy if you don't do it. So really getting into structured approach, I think, is great.
I think this is a good segue to introduce Andreas, right? So Andreas Westling. Correct. Very welcome to the pod. You have been, I think the longest, Goran for a long time. And you were on the data insight journey very, very early with pricing analytics in Navetti.
Yes. So basically, that was the first phase of my career. I started a little bit in consulting. Very quickly I got into Navetti, started as a consultant, were later running the consulting team, involved in product development and so on, until I led the company as the CEO for the last 5 years on that journey. And that was really, being big data before it was really a buzzword.
What year is this?
Now we're talking 2006. Still started as the on-premise world and then shifted to software as a service and cloud during this journey. And basically, it was data-driven decisions and building algorithms of different sorts from the very, very, very beginning.
With pricing in mind.
With pricing in mind. Yeah. With pricing in mind, absolutely.
So, and what's your if you take a step back and do, who is Andreas Westling, and how did you end up there, and how do you continue into where you are today?
Yeah. So I think what Andreas Westling is a guy that easily get passionate about what I do, and then I get focused, and I want to see progress, and I want to see activity and something to happen in whatever direction I pick. And then I tend to have quite long endurance, so I'm not going to just shift direction before I've tested.
Ironman guy, not a 100-meter sprinter.
No, exactly. And it was a marathon. I mean, the Navetti journey was like 15 years. And with struggles along the way and challenges, but always focusing on delivering value to customers. So that's me. And
but you went to, are you KTH?
KTH,
industrial
economy, exactly. Great education, good mix of traditional engineering and some economy, financial math and things like this, statistics. So it was a good base to have, and been useful on this journey. And then. I mean, I've been into sports my entire life, but I took a 15 years break. not break. I mean, I went out running on the weekends. I went to some, training on the lunch break and so on, but not structured. So, 15 years later, I said, okay, what can I do with this? This old body, can I bring some life back into it? Can I beat my 20-year-old self? I don't know if it's a 40 years old crisis or what it is. But
some people get motorbikes.
Yeah.
Other people start running.
Why are you looking at me? Yes.
Yeah, but I think actually I would leave my 20 years person behind actually right now. I would outrun myself.
And when did you do the Ironman in Kona and all this?
That was last year. So
this is the old body.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That was how I tried to measure up if I have succeeded with this little challenge, and I think I did.
Okay, so what's your score? What's your time?
In Kalmar, 9:37, and just under 10 hours at Kona, 9:57 or so.
And we talked about it before. It's the heat and the wind is way different in Kona.
The humidity was tough, and the heat at Kona, definitely. I mean, maybe I was hoping to be able to perform at the similar time as in Kalmar. But when I got to the island, I realized that not a chance. I mean, I went out running first day I got there, and I was like, whew, this is going to be a different story. So I'm quite happy with how it ended up.
Oh, that's good. But because in Kona, I think there's quite a few people who are not completing.
I think everyone, they are fighting very, very hard to complete because it's you don't want to go there and not get to the finish line. But many are forced to walk on the marathon because of the conditions.
Yeah. There's people that don't know what Kona is. It's in Hawaii, right?
Hawaii, exactly, big island of Hawaii.
Kona is big island, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Kanua Kona?
Where is it?
Yeah, where is it on the island? I think I need a map to
but it's big island.
It's big island.
Not Oahu. It's big island.
Yeah, big island of Hawaii.
How do you keep the endurance during a triathlon? Do you have a special trick for that?
Yeah, I mean, you need to fuel yourself. You need to fuel yourself. You really need to make sure that you fill up the energy system throughout the day and that you hydrate. And I think that is the key. And that you, of course, balance your intensity.
Do you have any trick before the run or the event?
Yeah. Make sure to fuel also the days before. And
it's like semlas and stuff?
Not semla.
Some people say it's a good thing, actually.
Maybe it is. I think carbohydrates is the fuel I use the most. Of course, you use your...
Like pasta and
things like this, and sugars, actually. Quick.
What do you eat and drink during the race?
100% fluid on the bike, and then some gels on the run. So nothing else actually.
And your stomach is a mess.
No, I think many people have difficulties with this.
With the gel,
with the energy and be able to absorb it and get GI issues of different sorts. My stomach seems to take it. Yes, take it.
Good for you.
Well, I've never run a triathlon. Have you, Henrik? What's the longest?
I've done the Olympic triathlon. I actually done.
Where did you do it?
In school or something like that. So this is Ignize, I think. So what is that? That is like 10K. No, it's 1 kilometer swimming. Or 15, or maybe 1500, and then the one I did was like 40Ks biking and then 10K running.
Yes,
and I'm not sure that's correct.
That was Olympic was the first thing I did on my own when at the last Olympics when the Norwegians were out racing. Christian Blumenfeld won the race. I said, okay, why don't I do this? And then I went down at our summer house, down to the lake. I swim in the lake, measured it on my watch. Okay, I need a few more 100 meters. And then I went up with my bike.
So you cycled. Directly inspired.
Inspired from
watching the telly. I can't be a couch potato anymore. I need to do it.
Let's do it.
And I don't think we were clear. You actually ran not the triathlon, but the Ironman.
Ironman, correct.
And that's much worse, right?
It's a little bit longer.
It's a little bit.
So the Olympic triathlon, is it 1040? What is it?
I think it's 1500.
I think it's 1500.
40K and 10K run, and the Ironman is 3.8 kilometers of swimming, and then 180 kilometers on the bike, and then 42.2 run. So you finish off with the marathon.
That is a little bit
crazy, I think.
Have you done this sort of what is this extreme sports when you run for days and stuff?
No ultras.
No ultras, right?
No.
That's the different thing.
That's the difference. Maybe we need to.
And in Stockholm, of course,
ÖTÖ is a big race.
You need to do, in Sweden, in Stockholm, in the archipelago, it's been the big thing, ÖTÖ.
Yeah.
So you swim, run across a distance. Ute to Sandhamn.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great race that I haven't done, but I've done some swim runs on Åland, where we spend the summers. And it's beautiful. Really like the.
But the whole idea is like you start at one part of an island, you run across the island, and then you swim to the next island, and then you run across that island.
Yes.
So it's like you're mixing running and swimming according to the geography, so to speak.
Correct. And I did it last summer on my own. Just when the sun sets and the entire sky is completely red, and you're out there. I was on my own. I had a little floating device hanging behind me with a cell phone on if I would, twist an ankle or something like that. But it was such a nice experience. When you're out there on your own in this, calm water, red sky, absolutely beautiful.
But I need to point out, in Sweden, in Stockholm's archipelago, if you have a boat or a jet ski, and you actually ever try to have the idea, I will jet ski or boat from Sandhamn to Utö, and then you start thinking about that. It's ridiculously long. And then are we actually doing this distance in a swim run? And I guess the straight way is a lot closer because you need to go around the islands. But still, it's super impressive.
Those are strong athletes for sure.
Do you know the times?
No, I don't. But I think it's a full day. Full day. It's probably similar like an Ironman in time, I would suppose.
Perhaps we should go back, to the place where you actually do work today. But before that, you actually spent 15 years at a place called Navetti, right?
Navetti.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. That was a fantastic journey. I really enjoyed building a team, supporting our clients to improve their profitability. So during those 15 years, I would say we saw also that pricing and commercial excellence really increased in importance within these organizations, from being something that you gave to the guy that were soon to be retired. take care of this until you understood the power of pricing and the difference it made to the bottom line. Right. So be part of that transformation was very interesting. Also to go from legacy technology implementations on-premise, license and maintenance, and realize that we're better off selling subscriptions. We're better off delivering this quicker through cloud technology was also a very interesting transformation to be a part of.
Can you give an example of what kind of service or consultancy did you actually do there?
Yeah. So many of the companies that we worked with maybe had relied too much on cost plus methodologies. What is the cost of producing these products? Okay. What margins do we want? How do we mark this up and sell it to the customers? Right. And what they got back was basically a mix of over and under pricing. They got complaints from customers. They were losing customer trust. Sales were frustrated that they were overpriced. That was the challenge that they were facing. And they had a hard time maintaining any methods. If they improved, they did some hard work to improve, then they lost that performance after maybe 12 to 18 months. So we needed to then shift culturally towards a more customer-oriented approach that was anchored in customer value and in the competitive situations. We talked about value-based and market-driven pricing. Right. That was what we helped them with. So then really the first thing you need to do is to understand what are we selling. Right. It sounds like an obvious question, but how can we convey that? And how can we make sure that we have order in the house so that we group our products into uniformed offerings that we can explain to the customer? So to do the segmentations of the product portfolio, we help them with that. And then to build value ladders or value curves, value algorithms to the customers. And this was done initially quite rule-based. Right. And those rules were quite static, and you maintained and updated them with a certain frequency. Early on, now we're talking 2006, maybe it was annual revisions with some mid-year tweaks. When we sold the company in 2018, it was much more dynamic, and you needed to be able to react on the changes in the market with much higher velocity. So a big shift there in the market as well.
Basically, so it was customized to the market or adapted to the market at least.
Correct.
And I guess also custom to the
industry and customer.
Mm-hmm. I remember some previous company I shouldn't mention. Yeah. What we were thinking about the value-based versus usage-based. And if you think like Google Cloud or Amazon or whatever, and they sell, in this case, perhaps more of a storage solution or a compute solution or whatnot. Yeah. And they basically use usage-based pricing. Can you say, when is it suitable to have a more usage-based pricing, and when is a value-based more suitable potentially?
I think actually it's not one or the other here. Even in a usage-based model, hopefully the metrics that you use in that usage-based model is linked to customer value.
Good answer. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So that it should be value-based and market-driven, even if it's usage driven.
Isn't it also nice for a potential new customer to have more predictability in the costs that it will have? So knowing that a bit upfront could be also valuable.
Yes, and that's explain and defend. So explain and defend your offering. That's important. That your sales organization, or if it's more of a self-service buyer journey, that they could. It would be self-explanatory, that it's logical and well perceived. And here it also depends on what position do you have in the market. If you're the market leader, if you're the one that everyone else is looking at, it's even more important to have a price structure that you can explain and defend, and others will follow. If you are just a reseller, you can be more dynamic and just shift and you can be more aggressive on how you position against your peers, and then the structure is less important, and you can take another way of optimizing your pricing. But you have a lot of limitations instead.
So you're highlighting as an example here where when you are almost like the reference price or you become part of setting the reference price in an industry.
Yes, if you're number one or two, that's part of your job is to have a solid structure in your offering that makes sense for the industry. And then, of course, it's competitive and you will be challenged always.
Just as a... Did you follow and analyze or in any way have comments on the pricing behavior of Tesla?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one, and they took so much shit from the industry.
Yeah.
What do you think about So the background is that they they dropped prices in a way that in the end puts anyone who has secondary stock in completely, and everybody says, how can we now understand a Tesla price when this is happening?
So Elon does a lot of things right, but maybe not everything. And
maybe this was right. I've heard both sides of the story. Experts defending him and expert shutting him down.
But I would, if you know the power of pricing,
yes,
and you know every percentage of decrease of your price, how much more volume do you need to offset that lost profit?
Yep.
Then it's very rare that a move like this will drive more profit for the company in the end. I mean, if he maintain his brand, he has a strong enough brand to not be the one that initiates a price war. And in this case, it's likely that he will force others to move in the same direction, and then no one wins. Maybe the planet wins. Maybe that's his argument. That
if you're trying to look in between the lines, why? What is the business forces that why would he do that? The argument would be that he has so much more volume coming in for 2023 in his gigafactories, so he really focuses on maximizing the production.
Yeah, but how many cars are you planning to buy? Are you going to buy an extra car just because it's a little bit cheaper?
No. Or he wants to use market dominance. What is the objective you're achieving with? We're talking big drop, 150 SEK, right, on a Model Y.
Yeah. I think, of course, he was hoping for volumes, and he wants to utilize the full capacity of the production lines. But I wouldn't say that that's the way to go. I would focus more on selling value and making sure that you maintain a decent price level in your industry. And if you're one of the leading players, why would you be the one that push the price down? That's typically the job for a challenger. He's been a challenger. He comes from a challenger background, so maybe that's
he has
a heritage of
DNA. He hasn't lost. He has forgot that. You're not really a challenger anymore.
That could very well be the one of the reasons.
Don't you think also that he has spent so much time using AI in their manufacturing gigafactories they do have, so the manufacturing cost has dropped significantly.
Yeah. Why not keep that for you and your shareholders?
Well, because they want to push other players out. That's the Amazon play, right?
Yeah. It's right. It's a super aggressive mode where he basically want to stick it to the car industry.
Amazon put a price that makes them lose money on the deals, but it actually push everyone else out of the business.
And I can even follow him in relation to how pissed off he is with how the whole automotive industry sort of been. Keeping him at a distance and all this kind of stuff. And so he's a little bit the scorned child that, is going to stick it. I think it's equally, I don't care. I just want to stick it to them, to be really frank.
No, that can very well be the case. And there are other well-known Swedish brands in B2C that is making it very difficult for their competitors to compete. And now I'm thinking furniture manufacturers that basically want to
Who
have...
could you be thinking about?
that really wants some offerings. They try to spread their offering with the design series and so on to capture a little bit more of premium, while they are also offering these very, very attractive products. So there you have one way of almost creating new barriers to enter the market. So of course it's an art and a science, and there is no black and white answers. But typically, as a market leader to be the one that initiates a price such a drop.
It's almost unheard of.
Yes,
almost unheard of. That's what makes it a little bit fascinating. From the outside.
Yes,
don't you think he's a bit afraid, like Mercedes or others? They do provide electric cars that are similar in functionality and actually potentially more well produced or more beautiful even, and he needs to keep. But
do you think, of course, he could then shift, then he's shifting the volume, then he's going from one persona to another persona with another value precision.
Wasn't that, like, if I understand correctly, the journey or the strategy that Tesla had, they started off with very like high luxury, super sports car, super expensive. And the whole idea was that would finance, going to mass market, the mass production in the end. Yeah. And this is the exact route he's taking, right? Starting high cost, small volume, going lower cost, high volume.
But typically you do that on different product lines.
Yeah, product lines.
Not within the product line. To shift the product line to, you had a premium position and you actually on purpose put the product line in a mass market position.
We typically talk about the value map. So you have perceived benefits on one axis and you have price on the other axis. And your product portfolio should fit that value map. And where do we want to position our company? What is our strategy? And what offerings do we have on different places on that value equivalence line? And brand will affect where you are. And of course, the quality, the design, the engineering, the service network, many things will affect your positioning on that line. But taking one offering that previously were on the line and just lowering that's below the line, then you're basically giving previous value away. So either your competitors have become so much better, so my position has changed and I need to respond to that by lowering price, or if everything else is unchanged, you're forcing the curve to go down. And that's a price war to me.
Yeah. Maybe it was a price war. I guess that's what is brought on. Anyway, we leave that rabbit hole. But it's a very interesting one. Yeah. But from the other angle, was that something that when you have your background and you have things, did you sort of, because I go into overanalyzing mode on stuff that interests me. Did this interest you?
It didn't interest me, but I must say I did not go all the way in trying to rationalize the decision. It's something you react to and you say, what's the rationale behind that? But I didn't go down the rabbit hole on it.
And then the point is, I wonder if it was a rational decision or an emotional decision.
I think he's very, very. I think he is very, very fast, and that I like. I mean, in our methodology in the new company Ignize, we work with decision intelligence. We can help with pricing and those things. We talk about the importance of tracking the indicators that affect your business, building models to plan and predict and forecast, and act on your insights. And really, what's the value of the insights if we don't lead to action?
Right, but experiment as well. Right?
Yeah, exactly, and test and evaluate and so on.
And act on it in the market window that occurs. Because you can think about it, but you didn't buy the stock when you should have. You didn't price it right when you should have.
Yeah. So you really need to act. But if you just shortcut it and you jump to the action without the tracking or the modeling or the prediction, then
you're risky.
Then you're a little risky, and sometimes you need to take a few risks, but at that, and maybe that's what have taken him to where he is. But the question is that what you need to maintain the position for the coming 15 years? That's another.
But I think this is a segue to start talking a bit more about Ignize.
Yeah.
And before we do that, what was the transitioning from Navetti into, you were brought up?
Yeah.
And then from Navetti to how did you come about starting?
Yeah, sure. So we so a little bit the rationale that we even sold was that things were happening in the space, in the pricing space, and it was getting a little bit closer to CRM and still close to ERP. So it's really the bridge between the two worlds. And close to CRM, you have CPQ, configure, price, quote, and things like this. So either we needed to extend our offering in that direction, or acquire a company or sell the company. And in that boardroom, we came to the conclusion that we have taken it so far in the pricing space, and we know that very well. Let's now call quits on this journey and hand it over to a new structure where we can continue to maybe add that layer of capabilities.
So you sold Navetti to?
We sold it to Francisco Partners, a U.S. private equity, as an add-on investment to one of our competitors in the space, a U.S.-based company called.
So they were building a pricing portfolio, you could say, in some ways.
They were modernizing their own capabilities, and our technology filled the space, and they strengthened their position in Europe. After that, I joined that organization, helped them with the integration of the technology and so on, to really make sure that they had the opportunity to take our value proposition to the North American market, and we could broaden our offering in Europe. And then 2 years in, once that integration process was completed, me and Styrbjörn, who were the founder of Navetti, basically said there is an opportunity in the market space to do more of the data that has been collected. So we have seen how the availability of information were growing within the organization we helped. So global blue chip companies, mainly B2B. Why are they not leveraging this more? So then we basically started Ignize with focus on decision intelligence, support of AI and machine learning to take more profitable decisions with speed. Still thinking about commercial performance, and instead of in the price waterfall or in the P&L, just focusing on price, let's now look broader on the P&L. How can we get data-driven insights to optimize that profit and loss? So that was how we started. And the challenges we saw, and here it will be interesting to hear your perspectives based on the other discussions you have had. We basically saw that the front runners, when it comes to adapting AI and really data-driven innovations, are seeing fabulous results. On the bottom line, they are more effective and they are generating leading levels of profitability. But the tail is very, very long.
Yes.
So there is a long tail of organizations that are challenging with adoption.
Now we have talked about the AI divide to death.
Yes.
So you can even argue that how big is the long tail versus the real profitable? The top 10 tech giants and the digital natives that know what they're doing, they have figured this out.
Yeah.
The long tail is the rest.
Yes. And then we said we need to be able to find a way to scale this into that long tail. And the challenges that we identified was you need talent, and there is a shortfall of talent. So how can you get more out of your experts? And once you get them on board, when you get them into your team or through your partner, how can you make sure that what they identify, those insights that they identify, actually get to the people that can take decisions? So that was the second challenge. You need the talent, okay, now we know that. And then basically we need to be able to get out of the lab environment. We feel that there is a lot of testing, there is a lot of good intentions, and you model, you test, you POC, you pilot, but what happens?
Prototype graveyard.
We've been doing this for long.
Too long. No, but it's the prototype graveyard is real.
Yeah. Yes. So how do you get out of the lab environment? So that's the second challenge. How do you operationalize this? So that's challenge number 2. And then challenge number 3, we think, is that to get out of the lab environment, you need to think about an operational solution that supports your business processes, and that you avoid a whisper game between the people that knows technology and the people that knows business. So how can they speak the same language? How do you translate this? If I'm a business owner, I'm a P&L owner, I'm a business owner, maybe at a central or local organization. I don't want to look at Python code in a notebook. The data scientist might love that interface, but it's not fit for purpose for the one that should take business decisions. So here we need to be able to translate those findings into an interface that fits the people that will take business decisions. So this is basically what our platform does. First, we make sure that we track internal indicators, internal data. So this is traditional things that you would have in any BI system. But so that's good. But with only that, there is a risk that we continue to back into the future. We're looking at what's already happened, and we're doing forensics on the past. Okay, why are we not meeting budget? And we're a little bit behind here, blah, 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 blah. You just talk about deviations. We want to shift perspective to be forward-oriented. But then we can not only rely on internal data. We also need to rely on external information so that we enrich our data model. But not just for the sake of it, gathering data for the sake of it. Back to the example in the beginning, what sensors do we need?
What problem, how do we scientifically want to run faster?
Exactly. So connect the relevant external information. And here we do a little bit the opposite first. We connect our platform with APIs to gather data. So we are a little bit doing this, the same problem. But then we are selectful. And say that for this client, you can 90% of what we have collected, you don't even need to see it. We have it in the platform, but we will provide the macro data, the financial health of your customers, etc., that makes sense for you. So that's a big filtration. So let's just move in with the relevant external indicators for you.
Can you give some examples of external data or indicators that you move? I think you mentioned some, but
yeah. So in the marketplace, just understanding the main macro indicators. So GDP development, unemployment rate, currency effects, currency development, minerals, what is happening with raw materials and things like this. Population development, many of these macro indicators. Now we're getting a 365 big view. Sometimes, for example, the general inflation numbers, things like this, right. Salary development and so on. Sometimes these indicators are helpful to understand order intake. Sometimes they are very helpful to understand what is likely to happen with our COGS. What will happen with the price, cost of goods sold. So if you're
cost of
goods sold.
Goods sold. Right.
So if you're a manufacturing company, and it's a lot of steel and copper and things like this, it will have a direct impact on your purchase prices, but often with a lag. So if you, instead of waiting until you see the invoices coming in from your sub-suppliers at X% higher, let's try to be prepared and understand what's likely to hit us.
You can see the drivers. If I take the example of Scania that I've been working for a long time, I mean, like even Scania sales of trucks is an indicator, macro indicator for recession. When order intake goes down. When order intake goes down in some of those industrial products, that is good indicators for an economy slowing down, as an example. So these macro indicators exist for sure.
Yes. So those are some examples.
So then, being prepared with that.
So now we are tracking internal and external metrics. We're tracking what affects our business performance, and then we can start to plan, predict, and forecast. And in some cases, machine learning will be a big part of the toolbox there. And in other cases, more simplistic approaches will be good enough. Right. So now we have a forward-oriented view. So instead of backing into the future, we're saying, what's likely to happen? How do we plan for the next coming X number of quarters?
So how do you combine the internal, external, and all the indicators to be some kind of forecast that you can make?
Yeah, so that...
please be technical.
A little bit. We can be a little bit technical. Please. So basically, we look at time series. So we look at time series of the target that we're trying to predict. Right. So how have the order intake developed? How have the COGS development? And that can be very granular, or it can be on a higher level. So now we have a time series of our target, and then we reserve a part of that time series for training, if we take the machine learning process, and we reserve another part for validation, and then we predict going forward. And then we add indicators to this. And this is where you need to be mindful. So you're just not, there will be correlation, but sometimes that's very casual. You can take this example. We're selling a lot of ice cream and people drown. Okay, yeah, right. So what's cause and effect here?
Or the sun shining and the sales price of or order intake of ice cream or something.
Yeah. So you need to be a little bit mindful when you select these indicators. Yes. But that's what we're going to do. And then we prepare the relevant indicators with different rolling averages, deltas, etc. So we have what we want to use for our prediction. We have the historical development, we have internal and external indicators, and they have been modified, and then we run through multiple machine learning methods.
Can you name some?
Yeah, yes. I mean, it could be random forest. It could be ARIMA. It can be traditional linear or multivariable regression. So here we are not the innovators. Here we basically use best practice methods that are available from the different cloud providers. But we have mapped out a big portfolio of methods. So our, I would say, expertise is to operationalize this and use it in an industry context.
Right.
And making it and present the results so it fits the business user. But we have also done this so that if you are a data scientist, you can do it in your notebook environment, what you prefer, or if we want to lower the entry barrier and you are just a savvy business analyst, you can follow a guided process in our solution, so you don't need to write the line of code for some of these prediction scenarios.
So here you have, in a way, you understand a low-code approach for the business analyst.
Yes.
But you are not limiting the data scientist to do stuff as well.
No, exactly. And then the data scientist can then leverage our tool instead to be the way out of the lab. Okay? So if he didn't, a data scientist might be able to model the same if he had the external data easily accessible, etc. He could do this, but then he would sit with his notebook and he would have a hard time getting this out to the business owners, and that we can fill.
So the proposition for the data scientist is, on the one hand side, adding to his internal data sets, external data sets,
correct,
and macro indicators,
yes,
and adding a UX,
yes,
that is helping him to basically present his Python code,
yeah,
for a normal business user.
Correct. Correct. And then we have gone from track to predict, plan, scenario, forecast, to act.
So what
track,
is act?
So act is now to take action on this.
Yeah, and how is that personified in the system? Or what how do we act on insights?
Yeah, so we have three layers in the platform that goes into this flywheel, if you will. So it's not one time; it should go just keep on going. Track, predict, act. Track, predict, act as a flywheel. And in act, it can be a hard link between an insight, a model, and an action, or it can be a soft link.
Explain this in detail.
So a hard link would be I see this trend and I want to affect this specific outcome with an action. So our prices are too low. I want to increase the price. Or we see that this market is underperforming, or whatever it is. It's very direct, very concrete action, directly linked to a model. So and linked to an algorithm. Very, very, very concrete. Other can be slightly softer. So we have 3 scenarios on our order intake. And we see a slowdown in this region. Okay, so we need a strategic initiative to address this and work through certain things with the organization, maybe shifting production capacities or other things. Now it's not as closely linked model and action, but you would then basically in our platform set up a business case for this initiative. What is the overall objective? What is the status? Are we on time, on target, on budget with this initiative? What is a high-level Gantt chart? Who needs to do what when? So then it becomes a way of keeping everything in one place. We're tracking the indicators, we model, and we don't stop at the model and say, someone needs to do this. We're saying, okay, we're going to actually note that down here, that we need to run these 5 initiatives based on our insights, really to close the loop. So you could say that, okay, you could in your infrastructure say that we need these different building blocks and they are spread in our technical landscape. It's very difficult to get an overview. Or you can use a platform like ours to get all those building blocks in one place. Very easy to get an overview of what's going on.
So besides tracking and predicting and supporting some act, you also have some, could you call it almost like a project management tool?
Correct. There is elements of that in there. And correct.
But let me dissect this a little bit. I think one of the key things, let me frame this as a theme even, because we were discussing before the podcast that we are trying to, even when we talk about with different guests, moving into having even sort of an overarching idea that we are sort of circling around in some ways. And my proposal for was user adoption.
Yeah.
So let me frame it in such a way that, okay, you have this great tool now, and one argument is that any type of technology or tool that has the capability of doing all these cool things falls flat if it doesn't get embedded in the workflow and adopted by the right users.
Correct.
So let's start there. So, because what you're describing now to me, it's a plethora of user personas who could potentially benefit from this. So who is the sort of main user persona if we start there?
Yeah. So it's a cross-functional platform. It can be used cross-functionally. But you can take it on a journey, like use case per use case. What is the use case we want to solve? Yeah. So either it becomes a tool set for, if you have a very modern CFO that is sitting on the edge of the chair, wanting to be a partner.
A business navigator rather than an accountant.
Exactly. If that type of CFO that want to be a partner with the P&L owners and the business owners, this type of platform would be very, very valuable to him.
So then basically a key sponsor could be a business navigator-oriented CFO who are understanding now how to be a partner to the P&L owner.
Correct.
And therefore he needs then a team that is looking forward and not only backwards. In the rear mirror.
That's very well said. And it can also be the business owner himself. So a CEO or someone further down in the organization that have P&L responsibility and wants a forward view on his business. If we take a sales and operational planning process, then it would be who's responsible for sales and operational planning.
So typically a sales director and the sales team leads who then ultimately need to resource allocate the quota in a region according to a certain product portfolio.
Correctly. And if either to just measure forecasting and understand, basically then we become a smart layer on top of the pipeline. Yeah. And provide insights on win rates and where to focus and things like this. So that's clear. And then, of course, we can, in a manufacturing context, we could help them with their. Doesn't need to be manufacturing context, but that's basically where we have spent a lot of the time, me and Styrbjörn over the years, with the commercial optimization, pricing, basically understanding the waterfall. Yeah. And doing analytics across the waterfall. And then it's a different business owner.
And this is interesting. I have experience talking about this in Ericsson and now a little bit in Scania. And we have this notion about profitability.
Yes.
And then very fast you realize where you are in the company when you find the intersect. Are we talking product contribution? Or are we talking customer? Segment contribution, market contribution. Yes. And all of a sudden now we have a profitability analysis and we really want to understand it from a customer point of view, or we have an SKU view from the product guys. This is interesting, right?
Yeah, but you should, with the right, as we said, how do we want to measure our transactions? If we go down to that granular level, if you have the right sensors and you collect the right information all the way down to that transactional data, you should be able to just turn that cube around and see it from a customer perspective and see it from a product perspective.
You wish, because ultimately, in reality, there's different political or different parts of the organization who worries about the different things when they should have. Of course, they should have viewed it as a cube. That would be the ultimate, of course.
Yes.
But there's activities and initiatives over here, and there's other initiatives over here.
No, so that's the thing. I love when an organization are proud of the logo they have on their chest and think, what can we do as an organization to be winning? And how can we team up cross-functionally to get there? And then basically you need to feel ownership of your responsibility and act there, but you need to also find ways to collaborate.
But because the real magic is in the cube, isn't it?
It is.
Like, because
It is.
if you're not being able to switch between the customer dimension and the product dimension, you're really not seeing the whole picture.
You're not. And if no, you're not. And of course, the customer is the best guide you can have. The rest is just how do we serve them best.
So customer profitability is more important than product profitability. If I need to push you on that one.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. You're in my good book.
Yeah. To people of similar minds, very.
We have an after work to talk about.
But perhaps you've been speaking a lot about decision intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that Ignize is focusing a lot of.
Yeah.
If you were to try to just differentiate, decision intelligence to traditional BI, I guess.
Yeah.
What would you say the differences are?
Yeah. So, good question. And I would say decision intelligence is really the step taking BI forward. And business intelligence traditionally have been a lot about the rear mirror approach.
Right, looking backwards.
Looking at what has already happened. So now with decision intelligence, we want to shift that perspective to be more forward oriented. That's the first big difference.
Yeah.
And the second big difference is that we want it to lead to an action. A decision. We should do something about it. It's not just that, okay, we have a nice insight here. We see something going on. But how do we take that to an action, to a decision that can drive a business result in the end?
So going from more descriptive kind of statistics or insights to more predictive
and actionable,
or even prescriptive even perhaps.
Yeah, that's we're not there fully, but that's the ambition to go forward. Absolutely.
Actually, I used to put Tetra Pak. There is Alberto Barroso is leading a team of. They were used to call data scientists, but they really went all the way and talk about the decision science. Yeah. And we had Rasmus Thornberg on the pod here a couple of seasons back. You met Rasmus? Yeah. And I think Rasmus says it well, right? Because it's one thing to model a prediction, but in order to get to full usage and to really understand how it's going to help business, it's still, even if you have an insight, okay, what are my options in deciding on what to do? And even if you want to bring this even down to let's go sales analytics or something like this, and then you want to take it all the way to the salesperson, right?
Yes.
Now, to really model the decision, or it's like, okay, we have an analytical model, and now you need to have a decision model as well, right? It's not completely the same here. Could we elaborate on this?
Yeah. So I would say when it comes to sales, pricing and sales. So we can go back to my Navetti days. So we talk about the price waterfall, and
what is the price waterfall?
A price waterfall is to go from that reference where it's all about setting an optimum structure of your product portfolio and your offerings, and then taking that out often in a global context. Yeah. So many of the clients are operating in 100 plus countries. Yeah. How can we be relevant in all of these markets, in all of these currencies? And how do we adapt it to different multiple verticals? And then we should do selling, right? Now we have gone from the reference. We often talk about this first half of the waterfall as price setting. So now we're optimizing our positioning. Now we need to capture value in the end. Maybe it's not the best word always, but now we need to make the customer get the value of our product, so they better buy in the end.
Yeah, and so reference price set wrong makes it really hard to sell if it's too high.
Yes, and if it's fragmented, then if it's have a poor structure, so offerings are both over and underpriced, you need a star salesperson to navigate and compensate if the reference is poor. If the reference is good, we can start to guide the sales force. And here, looking at, we often talk about stretch target floor bands. So based on the transactional behavior. So look at it as a normal distribution, more or less. So now we're in one segment of customers, similar customers in a certain market, in a certain vertical. What distribution do we have of our net pricing in this cluster? And what are the best performing deals? On what level are the best performing deals operating? So let's not now follow a mean or follow an average. Let's follow the top of that distribution. Let's look at the best performers and have that as the stretch recommendation to sales. And then we have a stretch target and a floor. And it's also very frustrating for sales to ask for approval all the time. Can I sell at this level, or do I need to go and ask for approval? If this guidance is set right, it's very rare that they should be able to be forced to go under the floor, because the floor is going to be different per segment and per offering and so on. So this band is going to vary like this. And that's rare in a traditional CRM setup. You're going to set your floor, and that's going to be the same floors across several customer categories. And then you get a slower process. You need to ask for approval when it's not relevant and so on. So let's go in with relevant stretch target floor bands that are anchored in data insights and your models. And then then you close the loop and you track performance. Are we winning? Are we losing? Do we need to shift these bands? So it becomes dynamic and a learning loop into this. But there you can be very descriptive in what you recommend to sales. And if it's, in an e-commerce setting and more of customers that want to drive the buying journey themselves, the right offering can appear in an e-commerce setting, and then you pick the stretch or the target for that segment, and you automate this process.
You speak about segments now, and I'd like to ask a question, and I can provide a small anecdote first, just to set the context here a bit. And I was at a conference. It was, I think, Rex's conference of 2015-16 something. Yeah. And we had a PhD student that was there. He was Chinese. He was very scared and nervous, and wasn't really comfortable speaking English. And he spoke about personalized pricing.
Yep.
So he had made this kind of awesome model. He can show that if they in their simulated environment had this kind of personalized pricing for each customer, then I'm speaking end user customers.
Yes.
Set the price in a certain way, they can gain, X number of, profits.
Yep.
And he spoke about that for half an hour, and then afterwards, he asked for questions, and then a senior data scientist from Amazon stood up.
Yeah.
And he said, "This is a load of crap. This is something that we would never use at Amazon. This is a horrible idea. We would never do personalized pricing, because that would undermine the trust that we have at our customers or something." And I could see this PhD student still being super nervous, just sank like under the floor or something, and having this kind of senior person from Amazon completely destroying his whole work was really, I felt so sad for that person. Yeah. Anyway, that's the what do you think about having personalized pricing? Speaking like end user personalized pricing. Yeah,
but in one way, if we can circle around this topic a little bit. It's an interesting topic. But if we start at price differentiation, that you're used to paying very different things for the same product depending on the context. So if we take this beer. If you buy,
I would be angry if Henrik gets the beer cheaper than me. Right?
I will, because you pay. It depends on which bar we go to.
But if we talk about context first, and then we can come to the sensitive topic that is different price at the same location at the same time, just because my whatever reason,
we know we have an after work prices for ladies in this bar. Come on.
That's also
so at different places we are used to paying different prices for the same product. That we have understood for 50 years.
And the example is that you go to a fancy bar and then you pay more for your beer, and then you go to a cheaper bar and you pay less for your beer.
And we are also used to paying different prices for different times of the day.
Right.
We're also used to paying different prices if I order the same, if I check into the same hotel. And depending on when I booked, it will be different price. Depending on the utilization, what booking.
Go to SC or SAS
so
whatever.
There are many dimensions we are used to this.
Yes.
So I would say that PhD guy is not completely out of the blue when he's saying if we personalize pricing in a context that makes sense for the customer, we should be able to differentiate.
Yes.
But it becomes...
The context is the key word
The
here.
context is the key word. What have we done differently for that customer versus the other customer that justify this differentiation?
What if you add the gender as a part of the context? Is that okay?
No, I think there are many dimensions here where you can get very bad press if you not manage this well. Yeah. And it can ruin your brand if you are.
So this is
naive.
Amazon's guy has a point.
He has a very strong point, but I think personalizing offerings, we're going to see that. It's going to go in this direction that we try to be relevant for different audiences in different ways, but. And loyalty programs have been used in this context.
It's also personalizing it.
It's also personalizing it. So, and some campaigns are made available to certain audiences. It's not strange that you listen to a podcast like this and you offer a discount code for that audience.
Or we spend way too much money at stadium for the kids' sports equipment, and then once in a while we get tonight you can have this discount code only for your family because you're such a great customer. Of course, that's personal.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday, but the difference is stadium is giving my family a specific percentage.
Yeah.
So I think it's a different thing than if you add truly like. Attributes of a person that you can't really change. You can't change the gender, you can't change the age, you can't change the profession.
But age we're also used to that if you go
pensioner rebates.
Exactly. So that we have accepted somehow. So I agree. This is a sensitive topic, and you need to really think through what you're doing when you do this type of personalization. But there are many ways that you can maybe also tweak your offering so it suits different groups. You get something slightly different, and by that adapting your commercial positioning. But
so individualized pricing is interesting, right? It's not only about the price point per se; it's what the bundle includes.
Yes,
that's what you're highlighting.
Yes, that can open a lot of doors where you can explain. But I mentioned earlier, you need to be able to explain and defend your positioning, and if you cannot explain and defend it, you lose credibility, you put risks on your brand.
So if you have like a transparent kind of description or explanation for what the price is based on, that would be...
Either you spell it out or it needs to be somehow contextually evident.
But what I think you're saying, when does it make sense to the consumer? He will accept it. If it doesn't really make sense, and you're making profit out of this, this is where you're in
shady area. You're in the risk area. Yeah.
But so explaining means, does this make sense? Yeah. Well, it makes sense that we have low turnaround or with low demand in a coffee shop in the morning, but high demand. So if you need to validate that, and I think you validated that on the context that is outside the individual. So individual get the personalized pricing, but it's on a context that is wider than the individual.
Yes. And then there are also, we need to also point out that there are also legal constraints. So if you have a dominant position, you don't have you cannot price discriminate. Yes. So there are those elements too. But here I think it's more principles we're discussing. What's fair for a consumer.
I think if you just compare it to like music recommendations or Netflix movie recommendations or something, they are extremely personalized. If two people, even though they are similar age, profession, and background, they will get different recommendations. But if you do the same for buying a beer or a book or a trip to Gran Canaria, that I don't think would fly as well, right?
No, that's when people think it's more sensitive. But I still believe that more personalization, we're going to see more personalization. And some are going to do it well, and others are going to do it poorly, and they might lose trust along the way. Right. So it's that context I think is important.
Can we move into a little bit different topic? I want to go. No, is it? Have we finished?
I think that was a very good one.
This was an awesome one, but is it sort of?
Sure, it's done.
Is it done? Okay. Okay. I've been in a very interesting discussion lately, happening from a LinkedIn thread with the CEO of Membrane, George Brontén. Is it someone you know?
No, I don't know him. No.
Okay, and he made a really, really good, cool article, basically highlighting, what are the challenges within the sales tech stack, and how the challenges we get into when we you could go down the monolithic way with everything is in one of the big CRMs and use packet, or and he was very much referring to the sort of classical startup scale up where they have a lot of money, so they're getting all these tools and all that, and you're getting into he called it, I think, the Hydra, heads popping up. So I want to explore a little bit about what is the best type of technology stack and how to think about data, connecting Ignize, working with the platforms. Everybody's the platform, so to speak. So I was a little bit triggered by that conversation, and the way I think I framed it for you is sort of understanding what's the technology stack for you guys and how to think connecting it to a broader data strategy and stuff like that.
Good.
How to think.
Good.
You see what I mean, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So first of all, we're still a Microsoft house, and to a big extent due to the B2B environment where we tend to play. So Azure, it's basically the platform is leveraging.
So your SaaS is your Azure-oriented SaaS.
Yes. That's.
But it doesn't matter because you as a SaaS can connect to anyone.
Multi-cloud. I mean, most of the organizations now are still multi-cloud. You will see several of the providers in the IT infrastructure within our clients, but we leverage the Azure stack, and then. It's also it's a little bit of a fatigue in the organizations and the users with all the tools. So there is a theme of this headless solutions also, that you deliver values into existing graphical interfaces. We have not gone that route fully. I mean, we have our graphical interface, but we can feed the insights into.
You mean like an API?
An API so if this stretch target floor bands or this guidance for a sales individual, we want to leverage the CRM, then of course you share that data into the interface where they spend their day. And
do you see a trend here even?
There is a trend of a little bit of a fatigue in the
too many different flipping tools.
Too many different flipping tools. So how do you make sure that you leverage the infrastructure that is already there to drive your value? There is a theme there. There is a trend.
And let's, if I connect that sort of technology trend into what I think is the underlying user adoption fundamental question. In the end, we want to be useful to whoever is the user persona and their workflow. And we want to fit seamlessly so they can really make their actions and decisions. That's what we said, right? So I think that's the thing. Like, how do I create the best user experience? And everybody's if you look at it from every niched problem, well, it looks like this. But if I look at the daily job of a sales director, of a daily job of a daily
they don't need another tool, and that's why also
they need another widget. Maybe they need it. They need the technology and the insight, but how to serve it.
Yes, and that's why these ecosystems like Salesforce get very strong, because then they have a big user base, and if you can serve up with new widgets in that infrastructure, you build up even stronger loyalty in that in those communities.
And of course, but are you an ISV within the Dynamics, Microsoft?
We are not that formally, but we should
potentially. That would be a great idea.
Yes. One more perspective in this headless trend. I still think there is a purpose to be able to open that box and kind of explain to a smaller team of users. You will have the big user group accessing your insights through other interfaces, but it's important to be able to open the books and explain what's going on. If this headless service just runs in the cloud infrastructure as a very closed black box, it will be difficult to get acceptance of the recommendations.
I'm laughing a bit here because I remember a lot of old Peltorium kind of discussions here.
It's the same, right?
I agree a lot to what you say here. So
But let me now go into the back end of this story, because I think, let's go back 5 to 10 years, and people wanted to build up a 360 view of the customer in their CRM. Classic, right? And of course, they then realized they might need widgets, or they might need a lot of different important data. If you go into the CPQ area, you're hardcore down into the product domain. And if I go in with my Scania hat on, we're in completely different systems now, by the way. So here we then started, CRM is going to be the platform 360, and we started to do all this point to point. Building spaghetti into the front end tool. And where I think we're at right now with the ones who are really starting to understand platform, we are starting to build a real data backbone of some kind. And it can be headless, it can be microservices, but it can also be data products or data sets or algorithms. And then we are thinking carefully about some sort of front-end strategy, or I would call it one word would be multi-front-end, that we have one user experience for the user persona, but he's actually looking at different widgets, and he shouldn't care which widget is Dynamics, which one is Ignize, or which one is a microservice built in internally. Do you believe,
I think this microservice thinking with clear inputs, outputs, I think it's a very good strategy, both when you build a platform or a product, like when we build ours, and when you take it from a multi-vendor perspective.
So modularization is really what I'm talking about here. No one can be the perfect.
No, because otherwise maintaining the infrastructure becomes very costly and difficult and slow.
So there is some sort of pattern here where you're starting building some sort of, this is your data backbone, your algorithm backbone, and you might be even doing even more fancy stuff, and then you have a strategic you have an experience which is end to end for a user persona, but if they are looking at a SaaS solution from Ignize or a microservice built in-house, he shouldn't care about.
No.
And if you try now to do everything, spaghetti into Salesforce or spaghetti into Dynamics, I think that is a bad idea.
It's a bad idea. Agree.
But it's still quite prevalent, or are we moving out of that? Have we figured that lesson out?
No, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the spaghetti. I mean, when we went from generation 3 to 4 at the Navetti days, I mean, basically that was one of the pictures we put up. Now I'm revealing a lot of Asian secrets here, but when we when you open the hood of the engine, we have messy connectors. We need to clean this up. If we should be able to add capabilities and have a more flexible architecture, we need to clean this up. And that was really what we did with the generational shift from 3 to 4 within our technology. And a little bit the same with our integration layer. We went away from that point-to-point connection with the communicating with the different hubs, if we put it that way.
Yeah, but and so do we think this is the trend, or how, because in one way, when you come in with the technology, sales technology, some people really need advice on this, how to think about connecting to your tool, I think. Yeah,
integration is important, but I think there is also a flip side of this. What that is, if we take the data lake theme, where there is so many flat files and we just want cheap storage, etc. So then it's not so structured always. It's more about storing a lot of data and then bringing up what you need. So that
and this is a distance from flat file raw data swimming around to what you need to feed into your. There's a gap here.
There is a gap there, and then there is a risk that you might start to say, we don't want a heavy integrational project. There can be some hesitance to go into that, and instead you start to share these flat files, which are in nature batch oriented, and so on. So there is two trends at the same time going on.
I like that love that you go into technical details here. And
I was trying to help you. I was trying to help you.
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned the different kind of layers of data formats, like the bronze, silver, and gold layers, etc.
Yes.
I think it's called what that data we call it, medallion architecture. But can you just think or describe a bit more? What do you mean with bronze, silver, and gold layers?
It's preparing the data for the machine learning processes. Bring it in its raw format, and then preparing it for different types of analytics.
So the raw format is...
The raw format would be bronze, and silver format would be something that we can use for valuable presentations and illustrations in track. And gold would be the format it needs to be structured to support that training process and the output of that.
That's really a nice way of putting it, I think, in a rhetoric that is not so techy.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I mean, I think that's, how to just build up the architecture of whatever data lake or lake house or warehouse you have.
Mesh.
Or data mesh. Should we go there?
No. I was actually going there indirectly.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting, and I think a lot of people or companies need help in understanding, how to simply build data pipelines that go through these different layers, if you call it that.
Yes. Yeah, and we really focus on the data, internal data that we need to serve these predictive process. So, and that can be wide and it can be more narrow depending on the use case. But we don't try to compete with the cloud providers that have that as their core business. We want to leverage it.
Because you're building on the Azure Lake, I guess.
Yes, we're building on the Azure infrastructure, and it can be both lake. It can also at times it's also data traditional data warehousing that we
maybe lift the hood on how Ignize is actually built. What's the coding language?
Let's not go too deep. Then I need my technical team with me.
I was getting excited.
No.
Okay, I mean, of course.
But okay, let's not go all the way there. But the way you have leveraged Azure Stack is, so now I'm into the inner workings of Ignize.
Yes.
Is this some sort of microservice idea?
So yes, we work with microservices when we build capabilities in the platform. At least that's what I'm ordering from my technical team and what I wish for and at times.
So you've been trying to keep it a modular approach to, how you can make how you don't end up learning from Navetti.
Yes,
of course.
yes. That's the principle.
Once,
we learned that once or twice.
Like all of us.
Yeah.
We thought we did it modular enough, and then no, we did not this time either.
No. So that's really. That's important, and I think we have a good architect that kind of thinking long term, and we want to make sure that we don't. At times, you need to take one round back, and I mean, what you want to avoid is complete modernization. You want to be able to grow gradually and with good pace. But if you would very high pace, you're cutting the wrong corners. And that's what we try to police now, is that velocity in development cannot challenge long-term scalability, if that's a fair comment. So,
can we don't go into super details, but it's really always interesting to hear, a startup scale-up company. Yeah. What is the composition of your company in terms of engineers, business, domain expertise?
So
how does Ignite?
So if we think about how we drive the company from the customer's point of view, so we really want to focus on customer needs and demands, and let that be the compass.
Now you need sharp domain expertise in this area.
Yes, and that's leverage my own experience and Styrbjörn's experience and kind of the business consulting mindset. How do we solve business problems? By combining people and technology. That's the foundation for how we drive product development. Then we take that into our technical team, where we have, and you can see it as a product owner and an architect a little bit in one at this point, that converts these business requirements into our roadmap. and then we have the engineering team with front end and back end development. And there I raised my hand and say that there is a lot of tech talent in Skopje, Macedonia.
Let's go. Let's work. Let's do this. Goran, you need to fix this for him.
So that's one part. But when it comes to the machine learning element, then it kind of shifts tech stack and becomes then more the Python side that we rely on. Right. So
one part of your stack is Python oriented in code.
Yes. And then it's more a combination of traditional back-end and front-end development.
Can we speak about that a bit more? I think it's if we go a bit more societal and just thinking for companies that want to become as technological forward as Ignize is, and they want to build up a team to build a product or a platform that you have. Can you think about what would be the different type of team compositions, the type of competences, roles that they would have? You spoke about product owners, architects, back-end, front-end engineers, data science. Well, what's your preferred set of composition here?
That's a good... and it depends also, of course, on the size. And early on, you have a couple of more hats on than you would have later on.
You start with more unicorn developers, and then you can start really getting a critical mass. I guess that's what you meant.
Exactly. You want the Swiss Army knives in the beginning with several skills.
But you have to be if you only two.
We're a little bit more than that. But okay, let's talk about the structure. So I think I would like to see close collaboration between product ownership and engineering.
Thank you.
I don't want any Chinese walls here in between. That needs really to... It's like sales and marketing. No, we can't have Chinese walls.
But it's also a yin and yang that needs to... You need both, and very seldom you find a guy or girl who
can take on both. No,
but they need to work as one.
As one.
But to the discipline of engineering, the CTO and the CPO... Nutting this out.
Yes. So that's it's an important it's an important balance between product ownership and engineering. And then I think also roadmap, the ownership of roadmap should sit with the product owner should own the roadmap and then work with engineering to kind of plan it out.
But here's not a committee owning the roadmap. It's the CPO who has the roadmap.
Correct. That's my view. That's my view. And that roadmap should serve the leadership of the organization. I mean, the leadership team needs to set the vision for the organization and where we want to go. And then you need to team up with your product owners to design the roadmap to serve that vision. And then you need to work with engineering to be able to fulfill that vision, and in that order. And it sometimes I would say it becomes too. You need to think about your backlog in one way and your roadmap in another way. So the roadmap should serve your vision and where you want to go with the product offering directionally, and then you have a backlog that is much more granular. And sometimes I feel that there is a little bit disconnect between the two. And if product management is more engineering, it's going to be backlog only.
Okay, can we go way deep on this topic? Because
before we go there, because I think planning is one interesting topic, and just to see how we can have innovation happening.
Good.
Park that. But before we do that, perhaps we can just go back to the composition of teams.
Thank you.
What's your preferred, or perhaps how do you do that in Ignize? What are the typical roles that you have in your engineering teams?
So we have the architect, we have the front end developers, we have the back-end developers, and we have the data innovators or data scientists that are solving another purpose.
So what do you mean? Now we're getting into machine learning.
Now we're coming into the machine learning, and also they also have a stake in how do we need to think when we go from bronze, silver to gold. So the back-end developers will kind of execute this and prepare this and make sure that the communication between front end and back end is well set up, and the architecture.
And for back end engineers, are you including like data engineering in that back end engineer role, or is that separate roles on your side?
I would say that this is more or less the connection between the data scientist and data engineering. So as I said, he should be able to come with the wish list. This is how he or she thank you, should be able to come with that wish list. This is how I want the data structured to be able to do most from a machine learning standpoint. So that's how we work, and it's not more complicated than that really. So front end development, back end development, and then something separate that is more for the data innovation and machine learning.
Let me put maybe this is in relation to size, so this is not relevant anymore. But at some point in time, when you start getting into different facets of the product, you get into the actual value creation, use case, owning the product dimension, and all of a sudden you get someone who's more platforms fundamentally serving like the infra layer. Like if I take Spotify or something like that, when you have 50, 60 teams, hundreds, but you know. So when do you start thinking what's the platform capability for the other teams?
So that we're not really at that level with Ignize, but if we go back to Navetti, then we had the larger organization, larger development team, and then basically we looked at platform, also a lot of balancing between maintaining the platform capabilities, maintenance versus features. I mean,
even code restructuring sometimes.
The balance between feature development and improving performance and safety and all of those things in the core. And then of course there is a lot of the entire QA process, the entire release process, and all of those elements.
But I was thinking, when is the time to start thinking like that? Because you have now the experience. Navetti, I don't know how. When did you get to that point? That was not early.
That was probably when we took the first when we went from generation 3 to 4. We really were in that situation where we needed to streamline better and
but if you now with what you know and experience now, and you're trying to look at your trajectory of Ignize, is this kind of move 1, 2, 3 years down the track, or when is the time to start thinking capability platform versus just building product?
You should think about that from day one.
Good.
You should think about that from day one, but you're still gonna the priority is solving the customer's problem, and that's gonna be your North Star. Very, very clearly initially, because you're still adapting to different use cases and so on. You need to be more agile there. Once that is set and have segmented a little bit, then the way you spend your time and make priorities will be a little bit different.
And I would argue, as long as you're at a certain level and size, this is one team or like several teams doing all the same stuff. So there is some sort of critical mass when you start separating concerns, platform. This team is really only doing this, and these guys are only doing that. That is a critical mass topic, I think.
And I think when you're also at that stage where you have a platform with multiple offerings on it, you need to also follow the money. So where are we generating revenue and profit, and where are we seeing customer adoption? Looking at the sales pipeline, where do we have the future business? Don't back into the future. Let's look at, this is where we generate revenue today. Where will we generate revenue tomorrow? Are we investing in the future or in the past?
I think that's a good topic to explore more, and we actually were almost getting into that before. But if we think more about how to properly enable, I guess, innovation or more long-term planning, and then you can think about so many things about being driven by the demands of the users or being driven by the technology possibilities that you have, etc., and simply how to maximize innovation happening. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes.
So we're moving into planning now for timestamp. We're moving into how to plan road mapping versus backlog versus. Let's start with your question.
So let's talk about innovation then, and say that innovation for the sake of it is not worth so much, I think.
Okay, elaborate.
So what I mean is that, okay, you said new technical capabilities. Now we have many new possibilities, but it should start with the problem we try to solve. What is does it pass the so what test? Is something I like.
So what test?
So what?
What do you mean?
Okay, now I have this information. Is it even an insight? Or is it just nice to know? And if it doesn't pass that so what test, it's basically not worth maintaining.
So
right?
if you can't elaborate on what the end user value would be, then
can it not lead to an action? Can it not lead to an improvement? And
we don't get rich on reports.
You don't get rich on reports. Sometimes you need to start with that to know what do I have to work with, so that you see kind of this is my data model.
Is this basically the difference between research and engineering? You know, sometimes you say that science or research is really about like building knowledge.
Yeah.
You don't really know what the value will be, but it is about building the knowledge.
Yeah. And that you do at university, and
I think you can do it at companies as well.
Yeah,
I certainly do.
Yeah.
And I think today AI research is mainly done in companies, and they benefit extreme amounts of money from doing so. So I don't think.
No, you're probably right. When you get to a critical mass, so you can afford that, it's money well spent.
But now you have a product problem, you have a usage problem, and this is the so what test.
Yeah.
Is this if we add this feature, in what way is it adding value
to our customer?
To your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the engineering.
This
problem,
is the engineering.
Right? So engineering and research are two different things. One is building knowledge, another is about building products that provides value for the end user.
For the end user. And my personal view is to look at the customer challenges as the guide, but they will not provide the answer to you. They will not say, this is what I need.
It's like the Henry Ford kind of quote, if you just listen to the users, you will simply get a faster horse.
Yeah, exactly. So
this is a very, very profound statement, actually, that we are not simply doing knee-jerk reaction to what the customer think he wants. We want to deeper understand the work and the problem, and even create the demand sometimes. But it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of us deeper understanding what
try to read between the lines. What is the real problem, and how can we solve that real problem for our customers and clients?
So what do you mean? Read between the lines. If you have a user, they say that they have a problem, but you should really try to think what's the real problem.
What's the real problem, and what, or maybe even go past the problem and say what is they trying to solve for?
Yeah, and this is classic. Sometimes a customer asks for output of some kind because they think they need the report. But actually, what's the decision you're trying to make? What's the outcome?
Outcome is a
so really, okay, you're asking me for an output here. What are you going to use the output for? What's the outcome you're after? And we want to be on the outcome level. That's what you're highlighting.
Yes. If we can understand the outcomes we want to drive for our customers, and a little bit also where do they want to go?
Yeah,
what's
impact.
What's the impact?
Sorry.
Yeah, where do they want to go? Where do they want to be 3 to 5 years from now? And how can we help them get there? And if we take that requirement and we try to read between the lines, but sometimes it's spelled out.
But how do you really read between the lines? How do you do that?
So you, of course, then you can be right or wrong. I'm not saying that you necessarily always will read this correctly, but you try to understand where they want to go. This is the direction they are on. This is the end destination where we want to take them. And currently they are working. We can take a concrete example then. So where I would say the adoption of this change is still very much ongoing. In the software space, it's happened. We have gone from license and maintenance to service. And and we can take the airline industry with the Rolls-Royce engines. They did it in the 70s, right? They were charging per flight hours. Yeah. So one way could be to look at an organization and say, okay, where do they want to go? They want to improve customer loyalty. They want to improve their long-term profitability. What are they selling today? Maybe they should sell something different. Maybe their offering and commercial positioning should be, maybe they should charge in a different way. And they come to you and say, can you help me with pricing this basket of hardware? And I want to do it this way. And then you could either just listen and build and configure your solution to do that, or you can try to guide them and say, is the real problem that you want your customer to have better availability, higher performance, higher productivity? Is that the things you want to, how could we solve for this?
And this is profound, because if you simply go by knee-jerk reaction, what someone is asking you for, you're not going to get the whole mile, because the guy on the other side of the table, or girl, might not be able to articulate it,
or even understand it,
understand it, or and typically what I have found is that you have very, very high fly KPIs on board level, and then we have some very concrete KPIs we understand on ridiculous operational level. So how many quotes did you send in? But this the connection between operational KPIs and result KPIs is poor, and even more importantly, the understanding of the drivers. And here is, I think, I use the semantics output, outcome, impact, and navigating those. And basically you will find that a lot of people are asking you for an output because they are process driven, they are value chain driven. But you know what? This output is serving an outcome. Could we elaborate?
Can we talk about the outcome, and can we talk about the impact? If we can start at the impact we want to make, and one thing that can help here, I think, is the strategic. If you want to sell technology to solve a need, to drive an impact through an outcome, if you understand the strategic themes that could be spelled out in the annual reports and so on, this is really what we believe in as an organization, you can be better equipped to start that dialogue. Okay, sustainability is important for us. So now we have a new set of KPIs. If we only have been focusing on driving sustainable, profitable growth for 15 years through our technology, now we have 3 new metrics that we haven't considered. Maybe we need to get them into the solution set to be able to impact new things.
I think this is, very similar to the Kodak moment. I'm not sure if you heard about that.
Yeah, sure.
So, Kodak moment, they had the analog cameras, and then some employee at Kodak, even I think in 1980s or something, come up with the technological kind of invention of a digital camera. And they
didn't want to lose out on the film, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, they have a KPI in that case. You spoke about KPI. So they have a KPI about the resolution of the image or something. And the resolution of the digital camera was much worse. So they simply said, these digital cameras, they are horrible. They're not improving our KPIs. Let's drop that. And they completely missed out, and they went bankrupt in like 1 year or something in 2008, because they didn't have the combination of, I would say, about both technological driven development and the user driven development, or the needs driven development. Right?
And here I think actually now I get a little humble here when you bring this up, because you talked about research and engineering and the importance of kind of driving that forward, and not only kind of the commercial lens. How do you balance these two? Right. Because you can go in pitfalls in both directions.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, that's the point.
So I think both are bad separately. If you just go technologically driven, that will probably not end up well. If you just go needs driven, that's not going too well. So you need to have the both, and they need to balance.
No, very, very good.
But
and that's back to the logo on the chest. If you realize that you work for the same organization and you want to win cross-functionally, then I think you have you're in a good place.
This is cool. Very good conversations we're having right now, and I like that we are fairly concrete now. At least to me, that it's actually quite hard to draw out the right outcomes and outputs. And I want to share an anecdote, which I think brings this home really well. Working in Vattenfall with business intelligence reporting in order to support the business controllers, the navigators, more to help us steer the different business areas. And we basically were aiming to really in one way automate the data provisioning or make the whole idea of business control being analyzing, navigating, and not data prepping, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then what's the output we want? Oh, it looks like this report. Yeah. And now we can do this report, and it's beautiful. It's even self-service diagnostic, and it's fantastic. Yeah. And we nailed the product, so to speak. Yeah. And then we go in there and talk to the business controllers, and we we nailed the product. And they said, "Oh, this is fantastic, Henrik." And then they start squirming. But this is only helping us day 5. Yeah. Because I need something to do data matching day 1. I need something else to do this. And this is what I really realized, that how you do your problem framing and how you really go granular. As you said in the very beginning of this conversation, let's talk about profitability. Please look at this. Yeah. We failed we didn't fail, but we had to pivot and say, we did the first iteration, the MVP, the first release. The second release will do data matching. Yeah. Yeah. And this, I think, is so important now. Yeah. What is your, if your output is a report, but the outcome was to automate or drastically reduce data prep or the work for focusing on analysts, we had to do much more.
Yes.
So I think this is a very concrete problem framing exercise that around output of a report versus the real outcome you want to have.
Yes. Great anecdote of if it's almost like it was a little bit feature oriented also, right? Yeah. That we want to deliver a feature that ticks off a few boxes, but we forget about the process we're trying to optimize.
Exactly. And how common is that? No comments.
Good.
Should we move a bit more? I mean,
I think we are time to go societal.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit more like this. Can I want to start on one topic here, and that is actually, now we've been exploring to some degree business-oriented technologies, and one of the key user personas, of course, is the sales director or sales. Yep. So how do we understand data and AI starting to impact these roles, or will some of these roles disappear? Will the job description change? So how, so from your perspective, that has such deep understanding. Yeah. What is the future of sales in this sense?
So I think there are some sales executives that are nervous, but I think it really depends on what is the offering that you are selling and what's the level of complexity. I think several commercial processes that are commoditized, if you're offering something that is closer to a commodity, sellers today want to be able to drive that sales process very independently and educate themselves. The problem is that the self-service buying journey that was only for commodities a few years ago is now starting to grow. And how far can that go until we meet the situation where you need to be more coach-like sales? So I think really the sales process have changed significantly, and it's not linear anymore. Like, you go through a funnel with phases. It's jumping back and forth to a big extent, and it's challenging for sales executives to navigate and be in control for that process. More difficult than ever before, I think.
And funnel management has never been more difficult in this sense.
No, I don't think so. And also the communities that takes decisions. There are more stakeholders involved than ever before, and they want information when it's convenient to them. So the customer experience that we have talked about a long time with the technology, that actually starts way before they are even customers of yours. So how do you serve them under the face when they are educating themselves?
And now we're adding marketing, lead generation, marketing qualification, MQLs into lead nurturing, into a qualified opportunity where the sales guys see it. So there's stuff happening in the funnel now. Yeah.
And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop when the sales team gets involved. That's continuing on top. So if sales and marketing works well together, they can also be they can also be precise and helping that specific sales process if it's large enough.
Yes.
Really leveraging marketing throughout the entire process.
Would you say this is slightly different? I mean, like, or a big difference actually how to think about sales and marketing. If now we're talking B2B, of course, a little bit more complex deals, but we are talking about we used in Vattenfall the terminology like, I want to have my sales guys do the critical moments of truth, Janne Carlson, through the sales cycle.
Yes.
And then I want to put a jet turbine engine next to him through the whole process.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that, okay, the sales guy is in here. What can we do as micro activities, where it's really now sophisticated, because then your marketing communication needs to fit where the sales cycle is at.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just
I've seen. We did something quite well with collaboration between sales and marketing during the Navetti Vendavo period, where we basically used these ring fencing of different geographies and went out with messaging through ads and Google ads and other things in a specific geographical area to serve important sales cycles. So we could basically, it was a little bit more difficult during COVID times, but when people were going to the office, if you could ring fence that part of the country and really, then you can afford the ads in that smaller region and really get the precise message out that serves that strategic account or strategic prospect, I should say.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So what's the final verdict or any? What's
no,
the
but
trend
when you
here?
see the CEO of that organization downloading your guide, then you know that it was successful. Especially if you win the deal in the end.
So here we now okay. The trend is that more and more stuff is done automated self-service.
Yeah.
And the trend is a seamlessness between digital content from marketing and the sales guy in order to build the influence in all directions to own the for a prospect.
Yes. And then still I have seen, strong sales executives still in this environment with all of this change that manage to get buy-in from the buying team that we're going to run a structured process, and it's to your benefit and to our benefit, and you can basically stop and at all of these different gates and get buy-in on this collaboration and deliver value and get commitment from the client along the way, which is powerful. With a clear playbook.
So basically what you're saying is you're also seeing a trend when we're talking about complex sales here, that you involve the clients in a process. So instead of having a sales process at home, you really make it a deal process, collaborative deal process. And in a way of structuring. And then we can follow the funnel together.
Yeah.
But we are doing it as a deal structure transparently together with the prospect.
With the set of activities and what do we want to achieve. You invest your time in this, I invest my time in this. We're going to prove different capabilities along the way. And if we come to the conclusion jointly that no, this is not delivering the values you're after, we stop. We stop early. And we don't waste your or my time.
So that's another trend.
Yeah. But they are in different sides, and for different types of deals and different organizations and so on.
Interesting. Stop there. Take another one.
Okay, I can go to one more societal kind of thing, and I would like to call this the question of the Instagram moment. We spoke about the Kodak moment, but the Instagram moment of AI. And what I mean with that is in connection to ChatGPT that's happening, Bing Chat, Google Bard and everything. Let me give a small intro to this. Have you heard about the Instagram moment of this? Or
no, not the Instagram moment.
Let me explain. It actually comes from Andrew Ng, one of the pioneers in deep learning and really impressive person. But he wrote, I think, something really profound, which was that today, we're seeing an explosion in media especially, and in the mass market of people of AI, and everyone in newspapers and media outlets are speaking about the powers of generative AI and the downfalls of it. I mean, it's a bit absurd what's happening with Bing Chat, and it's being very grumpy AI. Let's not go there. Anyway, it's impressive what's happening now, what you can ask these kind of generative AI models for. But the potential problem with this is what Andrew Ng phrased as the Instagram moment. So what it means then is in Instagram, I'm not an Instagram user, but I've heard at least that in Instagram, there is this problem where people put up pictures that are very non-objective of the real world. I mean, they put up pictures of themselves in the best possible lighting, of they being potentially...
Everybody has perfect lives. Yes. Everybody has perfect food. Everybody has perfect vacations. Everybody has perfect children. Everybody are perfect soccer moms. Everybody is perfect latte makers. And there is only perfection, and all the rest of us feel, oh my God, I need to shoot myself because I can't live up to this Instagram.
I get it.
So that's the Instagram moment, and potentially now, since AI has been connected, saying AI is ChatGPT, AI is Google Bard and Bing Chat. AI is not potentially like analytics used for
linear regression. Fuck that.
AI is not even recommender systems. AI is perhaps not even trying to use it for classification purposes or understanding text these days. It needs to be ChatGPT plus level.
It needs to be generative,
And I think that's really a big danger. And then, if you come as a company and say that we have AI, but then someone that is not perhaps connected to, the technical details of AI saying, you can't even ask it a question. That's not AI. Do you find this a problem? It's like they are raising the level of what useful. I would even argue that, this type of generative AI, of course, have new uses. But the traditional type of deep learning or even traditional machine learning is really useful. I mean, you use a lot of traditional machine learning as well, right?
Yes.
And that's super useful, but it's getting overshadowed in some way.
But in one way, sometimes we are ourselves to blame. Because we're talking about, we use these buzzwords and we talk about AI and machine learning. Why do we even talk about it? Why don't we focus on the end goal again? What is the outcome?
I like it.
So we should try to talk about the problems we solve, and let's stay out of the kitchen with our clients.
So don't speak about technology, speak about the outcome.
Let's talk about the outcome more, because that's why we are here. We're here to help them fulfill their needs. But at times you still need to, they want to hear it also at times. So I think...
I think this is an industry problem. I think this is going from the consultancy industry to the vendors, to the VC. Now we need to slap generative AI in the sales deck in order to get the VC aroused. So and we brought it on ourselves, and it is not healthy. I really want to go back to your basic, let's be outcome focused and really, and here the problem is we are even shitty in talking about the business problem we are solving because we are so stuck up in talking about the tech.
Everything around it.
Everything else. But
it's a pitfall you can go into.
But this is... how do we break that wheel? Because I think that is a negative spiral flywheel, and it's like I can even explain how it works. We have the Gartner quadrants who is feeding into the management consultancies, who is feeding into the vendors, and then the flywheel goes around. And I had a friend talking about this who is in and I can ask you: is it important for you to do a storytelling so you can fit into one of the quadrants? And he's like cynical enough, good sales guy enough to say, I kind of need to do this in order to get into the quadrant. And business sales-wise, he's correct, of course. But is it really the way we want to get things done?
No, it's tricky, but it's it's a lot of power in these guides, and it's used by procurement. So I understand his perspective that the story needs to tick all the boxes. But when we sit down with customers, we should talk about the value we want and the problems we want to solve, the value we want to bring. But to get there are some table stakes that we need to meet.
Can we change it? Do
Can
we want to change it?
Yeah.
Is it good or bad? I'm just observing how it works, kind of thing.
But I think maybe the other side is all of these self-reviews, right? So if you go, if you travel and you check into an Airbnb, you want to hear what does the people have to say about this place and this service provider. And the same, I think, could be very relevant and is, of course, already there through several providers. But maybe that's something that could neutralize this a little bit. So it becomes more user-driven.
But then back to Anders' question. Is it a problem now that the mainstream media is sort of putting so much emphasis on just one small snippet of the space of data?
But it's cool, right, isn't it?
Yeah. Because you could argue any media is good media. Any attention on AI helps us to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad.
But I think also, I mean, it's generative AI and ChatGPT and the power of that's also makes you, when you look 3 to 5 years out and the direction of it, that also slaps you a little bit in the face and think, okay, what can we do better? Even if we're in a traditional space and we want to provide insights and guidance and be descriptive, it's still one way to
can you rethink how you deliver your value.
And also, I mean, in our space with data-driven insights, if we could generate the relevant prompts to like ChatGPT and make it more alive, you know, turn the figures into a story in a more powerful way, I think it could help adoption.
Now back to the theme. How do we make insights actionable?
Yeah.
How do we drive widespread adoption?
Yeah.
And here, back then to rethinking from the
how we deliver the insights, and if we can do that, I mean, combining data and text and voice and video and what have you, maybe the experience can be improved for the end users.
And here you said something many times, Anders. I try to you can pick it up, but the best AI is the AI that doesn't feel like an AI. Well, the AI doesn't make it more technically complicated. You usually use your mother and working as a nurse with a fucking old journal system that was impossible. If you had a real AI that you could converse with, that's what AI is all about. Have a conversation. Be human. AI could help us be human with our systems. That's a beautiful thought.
It is. I think there is a beautiful future if you move it in the direction of using, machines working together with humans. And AI can certainly help that happen.
So
but then, if we move to another,
please go.
I need to just mention one thing, if you don't mind.
Please.
Yeah, and that would be sometimes how slow things are. You remember the first. Early smartphones with voice, we could speak and we could see each other, and it didn't take off at all. VAP. Yeah, now we're back on those days. And when three came with that type of capability and promoting it, nothing happened for 10, 15 years. And now we're spending most of our days in Zoom meetings doing exactly that. So this is interesting, right? You talked about we want a collaborative AI, we want to speak to it, but we're not used to it. And it takes so long time to get used to very new ways of communication.
This actually moves to another topic, which we probably don't have time for. But speaking about the IT development versus like organizational development. I mean, this is we probably shouldn't go there, but just to connect to that, because I think it's so important, because we are seeing so many technological advances now happening. But to make ChatGPT or whatever kind of generative AI useful in an organization requires a significant change in the way of working in that organization, and perhaps the whole business model, and perhaps the whole organization as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen overnight.
No. Now it's early adapters playing with it and capture some value here and there, but it's not part of the design of the organizational structure or how work is distributed or anything like that.
But we've gone down this rabbit hole quite a bit. And on the DARE Awards, I did actually, it started with doing some research for a keynote where we're trying to map out, when will the fourth industrial revolution happen, or how can we track innovation, right? That has a paradigm shifting character. And then if you start looking at innovation like that, it kind of looks like that we don't have an innovation problem anymore. The fourth industrial revolution is not a tech revolution, it's an organizational revolution, it's an adoption problem. So basically the tech has come and gone and started piling up faster than the normal businesses has been able to use it. And anyone who disagrees on that has not really looked themselves in the mirror and compared themselves with the Googles and the... there are clear examples of companies who are getting huge values out of this, and the most of us, the tail, back to this. So we are back into this topic that the tail is not a tech problem, it's an organizational ideology problem.
And I think actually, we talked here about generative AI and the hype, and is it good, is it bad? I think maybe it can actually help with the tail, because as it was a little bit of fatigue setting in the graveyard and things like this you mentioned, this can give a new energy boost to help that tail actually do what they should have done already.
I saw something, I saw a YouTube clip the other day of someone who was a little bit smacked in the face by ChatGPT, and he did a very good storytelling, because he was one of the guys who was very much on the train for the internet revolution. And he was an early Napster user in 95. And at that point in time, he could see around the corner what was coming. So he could see and understand how we can harness the internet, sort of the vision, right? And he was right at the cusp riding that wave. Now the guy is a little bit more our age, and basically...
What you mean young? Or?
No, I can't remember who's... This is a YouTuber, whatever. I can't remember. But he did the thing, what if... We need to understand that ChatGPT is the Napster moment of internet. So, and what I mean with the Napster moment of internet is like no one really understood that internet was anything cool or anything stuff. But then some simple services started to break into mainstream, and all of a sudden we knew what Napster was because we got our free music from here. We didn't really surf all the internet, but we used Napster as a tool, and all of a sudden we could see the potential here. This is 95, right? And then from 95 we went crazy to 2000, and we had the internet bubble, and there's a lot of documentaries on this. Everything that is said, all the crazy ideas that was said by Hofstein and all them, they are actually played out. It's just that they didn't play out in 2000. They played out in 2015. So there, it's a classic catch-up effect, right?
Delay,
this is, typically it takes longer for it to come, but when it comes bigger, right? So for me, I think that was a good analogy. ChatGPT is the Napster effect of AI. So, but then comes the big but. But with AI, we can't really see where it's ending, because with internet, then it has this sort of understanding where the Sigmund curve plateaus. But with AI, I don't know if there's a plateau.
Perhaps we should move to the even more singularity kind of question now, connected to ChatGPT. So. With that, if I just describe the question here a bit, one of the really impressive things with ChatGPT, even though I would like to stress that from a research point of view, ChatGPT was not really a big invention, but from an engineering point of view, it was a really big invention. Still, one of the big things was the ability to understand code and write code. So now it becomes the easy question, if someone simply says to ChatGPT or connects that into a loop saying, I found this kind of response when speaking to people to be bad. Can you please fix it? Or I got a stack trace of a bug happening here. Can you please fix that in ChatGPT? And today you can try that. I've tried it. A lot of people have tried it. It works really, really well. I remember one time I had a bug in a system. It was a silly like JavaScript thing. I couldn't find the problem. I just wrote it in like a very like loose kind of natural language terms. It gave a perfect answer and a suggestion for the code change. Imagine if you just connect that to itself, saying, I have this problem, can you fix it? It fixes it, it implements it, it redeploys itself. No humans involved at all. You just have a complete autonomous loop of a system that is continuously self-improving all the time. That is more or less the definition of the Skynet, of the singularity, of a system that is moving faster and faster in its ability to do whatever it wants to do.
And that's where you would hope that we can put some relevant constraints.
You would hope that, right? Do you think we will be able to do that?
Because that's difficult to answer, and we humans have been naive so many times, and we have. I mean, if we leave tech for a second, everything we have tried in nature and with technology and development, and we have moved species around on the planet, and oops, that happened. Let's try to correct it, and something else goes bad. So, but then always we have been at the top of the pyramid when we fucked up.
It's always been human in a loop there.
And we have it sometimes has taken us a long time to correct our mistakes, and sometimes we have even failed, and we have big problems today where we have started loops, climate change and so on. So of course, but there has not been anyone else that could stop the madness, if we put it that way.
But
so that's a little scary.
But the example you're bringing up here now, it's like sometimes we're very caught up in defining, is this general intelligence, or is it narrow, or is it intelligent at all? The example you're bringing up actually could lead to huge disasters without this even formally being a general intelligence.
That's a very good point, Eric. It is, because even if it's not general...
We all agree it's stupid, and I saw a really, really good article highlighting how to understand ChatGPT, and the main important thing is to separate the ability of language versus the ability of thought. And I found that an interesting idea that you can master languages and you can have functional language, but it doesn't mean you can think.
No. But I would actually challenge that. But still, it's a good point.
And so my point is here: you're drawing up a scenario that is a near future scenario that someone is doing something
that
becomes
easy to do today.
Actually, quite technically, to do a loop on the shit would be quite easy.
Today.
And what happens if that loop goes bananas?
Yes.
You don't know. We don't know that.
And that could generate general intelligence.
It could,
by mistake.
It could generate general
without
intelligence by mistake,
without
intention, or it can generate something that we can't control. If it's intelligent or not, I don't really know. But it could. So we
outcome
can get
driven. The outcome could be really bad.
you can get to a singularity effect without. It's being,
not even intentionally.
But that's also what we said a bit before. It's not really the general intelligence that we are afraid of. It's a narrow intelligence that's stupid.
Yes, that's what we always said.
Afraid of
that goes rogue, right?
Yes, and you have autonomous weapons, or you have something that generates viruses.
So in some sense, we are in a really scary situation the next couple of years when we're experimenting with this and we're doing something we don't really understand what happens when this goes. Exponentially faster and faster and faster.
Are you scared?
No, I'm not scared. But I don't. That's not how I spend my time, walking around being scared. But there are many threats, and you can. It's helpful if we jointly go after and solving different challenges that we have and. In healthcare, in education, in tech, in business, in life.
As you say, we have so many challenges in our society today. So, there's no need, or there is no lack of need for use of more intelligence in the world today, right?
No, we will probably die from their problem.
That we need. that we need, and I think there is a lot of advantage, and we better capture that. Yes. And we should not be naive. We're playing with powerful capabilities, and pace is high. So, but I'm not afraid, and I that's not how I work.
You're an optimist.
I'm an optimist.
So am I.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But I think that's a good ending to sort of start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have a couple of classic questions. We always want to, what's next in your life? That's a classic question for us.
I mean, I have 3 kids. So no more kids. That's not next up. That's not next up. But I must say, and 2 are a little bit older, and the smallest is just 2. So it's really great to see rapid development also on that front. So that I'm going to keep a very close eye on this year. Development of all my 3 children.
That's a life in abundance, right? When AI keeps doing the bad stuff, we can focus on the important
other
stuff.
Things.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but I think that's going to be a focus this year.
That's awesome. And last questions. Do you have any good recommendations for guests? Who would you want to see on the pod?
That's a tough one. But why not? This is going to be difficult for you. But why not invite Musk here to explain his pricing decision?
No problem.
I would like to. I mean,
here is
pricing strategy. As a pricing nerd, I would like to know the reasoning and why did he decide to give all that profit away.
No problem. I call him tomorrow and we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Not.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That will be really fun, though.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Great to be
Thanks,
here. Love what you're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good fun, man. Really good fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.